What to do after you have completed your webinar slides. So I was brought a question by a friend of mine, and he had just finished his webinar slides. So he's gone through Expert Secrets by Russell Brunson, created all of the slides, and then said, well, now what? And this is actually a very daunting place to be, because the amount of work that goes into creating those slides is significant, and it can be done. But if you're going through the book and extracting out all of the work that needs to be done, creating it, you're like, oh man, finally, I got there. I'm done. But then that next question comes. Well, now what? What do I do with this webinar? Because all you've got is the slides. And suddenly you may be feeling a little strange in terms of all of this work's gone in, and yet you cannot see how this is actually going to get anybody on your webinar, how you're actually going to sell anything, how you're going to make this work. This is a very distressing place to be. Because from that place, suddenly you're like, okay, well, what else needs to be? And just looking at the sales component alone, suddenly you're like, oh, I need an opt-in page. I need them to register for this webinar. And then I need to have a page which confirms that it worked. And perhaps even send them an email saying, hey, yeah, you're confirmed. So we've already got 3 things to do. Then if you want people to show up, ideally, you have some warm-up material, and suddenly you're looking at web pages and videos and emails to tell them that they exist, plus then actually reminding people to show up. And you're like, oh my goodness, I need a reminder sequence to show up to the webinar. And then you do the webinar. And then you've got a decision at that point. Well, do I go replay, or do I go with the objection videos? But if you go either of those, you're going to need both emails to the replay page plus the replay page itself, or emails to the objection videos. And then on the final day, also the close emails, locking it all down. And suddenly it's like, I thought this was the work. Just creating the webinar was the work? No. Unfortunately not. There is a lot more pieces to the puzzle. You just put the big piece in the middle. That's great. But there's a lot of other moving parts to this webinar. And you might think, wow, if I could get all of those done, then I would be done. Sort of. Sort of. Have you considered your retargeting ads? For those that hit the opt-in page and then don't opt in, are you going to retarget them? What about those who have opted in? Are you going to remind them to come? Is there any place for retargeting to show up to the webinar? And then those that did or did not show up, are you going to retarget them to buy? What about thinking for those who did not buy? What happens next? Do you invite them to a one-on-one conversation after the webinar? Have you thought about that? Because you're leaving money on the table if you do not do that. And that's before you even consider getting people to the webinar in the first place. What about your advertising emails to let your list know that this webinar exists? Should you have different opt-in pages for these people? Because they know who you are, they know what your products are, and they're in a very different place than someone who is just coming cold off a PPC ad or a Facebook ad or an Instagram link or a TikTok video. And what about those people anyway? Have you thought about your text ads and your video ads to run on your social media platforms for organic? Have you thought about your blog posts for your SEO? Have you thought about your paid ads? And suddenly, when you start to see the amount of content and the amount of work that needs to be done, this can be very overwhelming. And suddenly what was looking like an exciting and enjoyable experience of going live with a webinar and selling and suddenly making sales, and you've got 20 or 50 or 100 sales coming in, And those dreams are left crumbling on the ground as you realize the amount of work that needs to be done. So you might ask, is there a better way? Well, I'm happy to tell you there is. And that is that you build all of these up front, that you know exactly what you're going to be faced with so that you can have the mental fortitude, the mental framework to go, okay, I get what I am signing up here. That the amount of work that you have to do is not a surprise. But before you get completely overwhelmed, I want to let you know one good thing, and that is that the variables, the blanks that go into all of these templates are consistent across the board. Once you have identified who you're selling to and what your offer is and what the journey is that those people are taking on your webinar, then these variables deploy out across your ads, across your sales experience, and even into the purchase of the products themselves. If you want help with this, if you'd like this done in under 3 weeks, then head over to systemio.dev and go to the Facebook page and send me a message and say, hey, you know what, Tom? I want my webinar done. I don't want to be left high and dry, struggling, having put in hours and hours of work and still finding that you are a long way from going live. All right, head over to the Facebook page, send me a message with the words webinar, and I'll get back to you and let you know what that looks like. All right, thanks for tuning in to today's episode as we look and continue into the power of systems to create results. I'll see you next time.